said, and other options, which you probably put in there after you saw staff's recommendation based on what they heard as what the work session was going to be about. And I have to admit, I heard that we were going to invite the EUB in, and we were going to have sort of a roundtable discussion.
A joint meeting. That's what I heard.
I didn't hear that they were going to sit in the audience like moviegoers and watch,
Yeah.
you know, the story unfold and have no input to it.
Yeah.
Do you remember that? Anybody remember that being the case?
I thought that we had made it clear that there was going to be a joint meeting of these.
So perhaps you misunderstood the other options part of it too, because I don't.
Well, you know, if you want to needle me about something, you're certainly welcome to.
Actually.
Well, and I mentioned, I think in the last meeting, about there not being something original happening, and I guess that's probably the case here as well. I would say that I'm looking at Randy Gregorczyk, who sat on council as well. I'm looking at Mark Baldwin. They've been here. I offered them an opportunity to get up and say something. I've offered council members, if you want to ask a question of the electric utility board members here, you've got every opportunity.
Is that
And
how-
nobody's asked them a question.
Is that how we did it from when USD 231 and us had, and the council and the
No, no.
governing body had the joint session?
Yeah,
Did they sit out there?
Hold
No, we all
on,
sat at the big
hold on just
table.
a
It
second.
was a round table
Yeah.
discussion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Board of Education from USD 231 is the governing body for the school district. We are the governing body for the city of Gardner. The board members, while I appreciate all their service, and have lauded and applauded them for years now, are not the policymakers and not the governing body of the city of Gardner.
That's exactly what I've been trying to say.
On-
That's my
on-
point exactly.
On top of that, I do want to have their input. What I would like is to see a direction from council before we start engaging them on a long-term plan.
The
That's
direction
what I
from
said
council.
20 minutes ago. I said, how is this going to impact the Gardner ratepayers as you see the proposed ordinance? I mean, I couldn't have stated any more clearly, both tonight and the last time. And we've still yet to hear the first word from anyone except us five.
Correct. And Randy's up.
Randy Gregorczyk, 620 East Hawthorne, also a board member for EUB. First, I want to say I appreciate the opportunity to stand before you, both council and mayor. Second of all, I didn't have anything prepared because, quite frankly, Bill Krawczyk and Janet at some with some amount of egging, we asked for a special meeting on Halloween, and we had quorum and we had an opportunity to visit. At that meeting, I might add that Councilman Fodovich and our mayor were in attendance, and there was some healthy debate, or communication, I should say, that slipped. And so I'm not prepared, as I was looking for Eric Schultz, our president, to stand before you. But with that being said, and I'd have to piggyback on what Councilman Freeman said, is that we really need to address the legal perspective, no matter what the fancy word, the legal perspective. I see that as the first stone. From that first step, then I would see a fork in the road. Now, before I get to that fork, I would add that comparing McPherson, Kansas to Gardner, Kansas is apples and oranges. And I can go into great detail, but I think we've all heard those details. First being that it's an 80-20 split. They have 80% of their dollars and cents supported by commercial business. Here in Gardner, Kansas, we have just the opposite. We have 80% being supported by all of us in this room, the citizens. So with that being said, I think the first step is to understand the remedy to addressing the legal situation that we're all in. Looking through the windshield here, not the rearview mirror. Second, as I said earlier, is the fork in the road. The fork in the road is, do you want to, after taking care of the legal side of it, do you want to have an advisory board? Do you want to have them back on an island, running it like a business? Where do you want that to go? That's one fork. The fork on the right would be to, which I think is a really big step, based on the track record of council, both current and previous, is the BPU, and is that a good fit? Is it good timing? That's where I come from. Thirdly, I would also ask that you consider the bond modification ramifications and understand how the EUB fits into that equation, and make sure that we don't have an albatross around our neck later down the road based on those decisions that are before you today. So in closing, I would say that you need to address the legal perspective, first and foremost. And I think then you're in a better position to take that second step as the mayor campaigned on, and I know that he's passionate about. But again, I didn't have anything, I wasn't prepared for this, quite frankly. I was prepared to speak, but with some amount of leadership from our president on behalf of the UB, so thank you.
Before you go, I think it's worth noting that Randy asked at the EUB meeting what your plans were, and you refused to tell him then.
Yes, Larry, that's exactly right. I asked...
what's the big secret? You claimed coma was a consideration. We
That's
all
not a
agreed
fact.
that two people-
Actually, I didn't claim coma in regards to answering that question.
But there was no coma violation at all anyway.
Actually, if you want to look at the amount of slides that were prepared, and they weren't all prepared by Thanksgiving night,
Halloween night.
Halloween night, yeah.
But this- Go ahead, Mayor.
So, this was a work in progress. Actually, staff only wanted to come back and talk about one of two options. And honestly, what I just heard from Randy makes me think that what I'm getting from hearing from him, what I'm hearing from Heath, what I'm hearing from you, is that we need to remedy the extra-legal situation and take our time. And if that's the case, then the issue should be, what do we need to do to modify number 3, to modify the EUB ordinance to operate as an advisory board until we figure out where we're going to go. And if that's the case, then that's the discussion that we should be having, because that seems to be that maybe we could get consensus on that.
That's exactly what we did at the first meeting when we discussed this. And staff went off and reviewed the tapes and came up with all the remedies to the ordinance that were mysteriously voted down by the same 4 people that wanted it to begin with. So I guess I'm not sure, I mean, that's exactly what I was hoping for, is that we go back to the ordinance that we spent probably a couple $1,000s to write, and take a deep breath and say, let's see what our goals really are, and let's don't try to fix something that was established by another party 5 years ago that had a whole different notion of what, the meaning of this board was. In fact, I think Cheryl and I have, we've had this conversation. We're both, in the sort of the writing, we have writing backgrounds, and get called upon, as we discussed many times, for people to, rewrite a letter to their boss, or rewrite a resume, or, term papers in college even. And the worst thing you can do is take a piece, a bad document, and try to edit it. It's better just to tear the whole thing up and say, what is the goal that you're trying to communicate here? And that's why I think that the best option is to remedy the problem at hand, which is the legal matter, and then go back and say, what's our real objective?
So you're lobbying for option number 3 then,
Well, and I just
considering
wanna-
option
but
4 is
I just
off
wanna
the table.
I just want to clarify. I didn't necessarily vote it down last time. I'm in favor of how we wrote it. I just thought we needed further discussion to make sure that's the direction we wanted to go. I wasn't necessarily totally against it,
Okay.
because you said 4 of us,
Well,
I don't
4
know.
of you
and I
did vote it down, or table.
Well, we
voted
wanted to
table.
have
Voted
further
to table it.
discussion.
Different vote.
Yeah, and actually, Mark Baldwin has joined Randy at the podium. Do you have something to say, to add, Mark?
I actually came up here more for if there's a specific question, maybe Heath wanted a specific answer. I wanted to listen to the discussion before I came up with any comments, so I'm here more for any answers.
I've got a question specifically, because I think that moving to an entirely advisory capacity with the UB is a mistake. I felt that way since the very beginning.